Hello and welcome to another episode of The Living Philosophy. Today's episode I'd like to talk about a critical difference between Carl Jung and Friedrich Nietzsche and their theories of the value, of the generation of new values. So let's just jump right in and explore that. So Carl Jung built a lot of his work, like Freud did, on the works of Nietzsche. Nietzsche was such a revolutionary star at the end of the 19th century that he really influenced the birth of psychology in the 20th century, and psychoanalysis in particular. And so what Nietzsche's really concerned with is the creation of a new tablet of values. This is a big thing in the work of Nietzsche, and he was even going to dedicate a three-part series of works on the revaluation of all values, and he'd started that work, but it looks like he'd finished it. But we have a lot of the notes from that in a book that's now published as The Will to Power, which was going to be the first of the three books. And for Nietzsche, that creation of new values is something that the philosopher does. It's something that is, for Nietzsche, it's a conscious activity, and it's something that the philosopher works to do and decides what would be best for the future, and what kind of humanity and race and culture do we want to see going forward. And that's where he's working from, and he gets so lost in that process and is busy destroying the old value system. That's kind of what the Antichrist book does, and the Twilight of the Idols, philosophizing with a hammer, Götterdämmerung, and that's him working on the destroying of the old values and making way for the new. So the only real thing we have that was the creation of the new values would probably be Thus Spoke Zarathustra, which is certainly his most unique stylistic effort. But it was very much for him that creation of new values and new. So by values here, we're thinking of something like a table of values, like morality, or the cultural values and the things that drive a culture that we adhere to as a whole. So generally, religions instill this to a society, and they use that as their rudder in making their decisions and in guiding the best practices and in how they want to appear to the public. And Nietzsche wanted to create a new table of values because he felt like the Christian one was not leading to a healthy or life-affirming European society. Jung comes at it from a different angle. So obviously Jung and Freud had then done a lot of work exploring the unconscious and the underworld of the mind. And having seen that, and having seen how much of the mind is unconscious, Freud had that image of the iceberg, and consciousness being merely the tip of the iceberg, and the rest of the iceberg being what is unconscious. And so that idea of the unconscious really changed things for Jung. And so when he's looking at the creation of new values, when he's looking at how do we change the course of culture and society from one era to another, then that is not something that happens consciously. That's not something that we choose. And it's not something that the philosopher sits down and in his armchair he comes up with new ways of being. For Jung, it's something that bubbles up from the unconscious, because that's the source of all values. And this makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because values they're not rational, they're emotional. And when we value something, it's because it gives us a feeling, we believe in it, and it gives us that strong sense of grounding. And so it makes a lot more sense that would come from the unconscious, which is the mother, the matrix of all feelings of value, and just feelings in general, and emotions are coming up from the unconscious. Whereas values that are happening rationally don't have as much depth. They're just logical workings out, unless they're coming from that deeper place. So that's just a key difference that I found, which really opens up an understanding of the difference between Jung and Nietzsche. And you can see where Jung has built on Nietzsche, but where he digresses from him there. And I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please subscribe if you haven't already, and give us a thumbs up. And I'd like to hear from you, love to hear from you down in the comment section. And otherwise, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.